Welcome to the Clueless to Conscious podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Dills, joined by my amazing co-host, Shadi Rose. Together, we're here to explore all things holistic and spiritual.
So grab your favorite tea and get cozy and join us on this journey from clueless to conscious.
Let's get started.
All right, welcome to our second episode. Yes.
We're bringing the energy today. We're so
Totally.
excited to be back.
We're really excited. And, last time we kind of got into a tiny bit of our spiritual awakening. I feel like we both had a lot more to say, and I'm not even sure what I was saying last time, but yeah, so I think, last time I kind of talked about really how I started meditating, and I think, of course, that has played a role in my spiritual awakening for sure, but there was a lot going on before that that kind of also led to that moment.
Because we had both shared a similar timeline of having kind of these dark days 10 years prior to what led us up to this moment in time. So do you want to talk about where that started 10 years ago, or anything that happened before then, or how did that start for you?
Well, I mean, of course I could go back all the way. It's like I feel like there was definitely things in my childhood that also contributed, but we're gonna try and
condense it.
Yeah, we're
keep it
concise. So I'll start. I think that 10-year timeline is a good place for me to start, at least. 20. I mean, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was still in college. It took me a long time to get through college because I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was always changing my mind.
Same.
And I think that this is one of the things that started opening me up, because I think a long time before that, I had kind of lost touch with my true self. And I was just either picking things that I thought other people would think were good, or that they would be proud of me for, or that I had some logical reasoning in my head of why this would be good. But it wasn't like heartfelt for the most part.
And this is why I wanted Shadi to go first. Because everything that you're saying is reminding me of my start.
Yeah.
So please continue.
No, I know. We literally every time we talk, it's like we feel each other. But yeah, so I felt lost, and I was constantly like comparing myself to everyone around me, which was my siblings a lot for me, but also, friends and stuff. And I was just like, they're successful in these ways, and I don't feel like I am meeting those benchmarks. And it was kind of a weird feeling, I guess, because I knew that I didn't want those benchmarks, but I still felt like I'm not meeting them, and that's not good. So I think that that's like kind of when I started to get depressed. And
comparison is the thief of joy.
Exactly. It totally is.
But you don't know that at the time.
I
And when someone
know.
sa's that to you, you're like, what the hell does that mean?
And how do you stop? Like, how can I stop comparing myself?
Yeah,
you
like,
know?
okay, that's great. That's a fun motto, but how do I change?
Yeah, exactly.
So this started for you in college.
Yeah.
Or you became conscious of it around college.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just like, I was getting depressed, and I still was looking outside for my answers. Like, I was still like, oh, well, if I try what that person is doing, or if I do, that. And it was always like, now looking back, I can see that I was it was all like outcome happiness. That's how my mind was working. Like, and I did feel like it was situational, even though I was depressed. I was like, no, when I get a job and I'm successful and I have
Mm.
money, then I'm going to be happy, obviously. Like,
Obviously, because that's what we've been told our entire lives.
yeah. So yeah, I was just like continuing. Well, I was trying to get those benchmarks that society has like put out there as, making it or becoming successful. And I would say I wasn't meeting them still, even though I was trying. But it just kind of, s- well, yeah, I just feel like I got lower and lower, like in how I felt, it just started
100%.
adding up.
Moving further and further away from
Yeah.
your true
Yeah,
self. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. I also had this knowing, like, okay, I'm crying every day. Like, I'm not thinking positive things about myself or like about life. And this is what my reality looks like. I'm sad and I don't feel good and nothing is really happening the way that I want it to. And I would think back to when I was younger and like back then, it's not that there weren't bad things going on, or I don't know if I should call them bad, but like, of course, it's not,
Challenges.
yeah, there was challenges for sure. But I was happy and I was, like, and of course there is some aspect of like you're a child and you don't have to worry about certain things, but like that may
Your
just be
mindset,
programming also.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would think like, oh, back then it felt like everything was good and I was so positive and happy all the time and I could see like my different mindsets and the different realities that I have lived at that point.
Mm.
But I still didn't have that connection of like, okay, maybe try changing my mindset, changing my thoughts. Like, um, so I feel like that was more, um, that's like kind of where I was. And then I
Mhm.
started, self-help books. I started reading
Oh,
self-help
wow.
books.
You're way far along. You're more far along than me at
I
that
mean, I
time.
think it was kind of sporadic. It wasn't like, but yeah, I think that that's
Was there any of those books that you would recommend to people or that resonated at the time?
to be honest, for so many books like that I read, it's like I finish reading and I'm like, okay, yes, like I know what to do and I'm gonna do it. And then it's like, after a couple weeks or even less,
Mhm.
sometimes it just kind of fizzles out.
Mm.
So I don't feel like any of those really had a lasting impact, to be
Right.
honest. And, since then, I feel like I take things a lot differently. So like now it's
Mm.
different. But like at the place where I was back then, I just wasn't really ready to integrate those concepts. Yeah, I feel like I was just questioning. This was a time when I was
Mm.
really questioning. I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
That's the start.
yeah,
That isn't that the
it
start where
is
you're
the
kind of
start.
like become all of a sudden you have like this conscious moment. I mean moments, and
Yeah.
then you start to question, okay,
Yeah.
wait, why? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? Why am I responding this way? It's yeah, the questions start to pour
Yeah,
in.
exactly.
So
So
you saw the answers in self-help books, would you say?
I don't even think, I mean, maybe they gave me some short-term answers. I think it maybe gave me more questions. But
Okay,
like
yeah.
but in a good way,
Yeah,
like um
you're being more
yeah,
curious,
being
sure.
more curious and
Mhm.
just also like trying to be real with myself. Yeah, so I feel like that's kind of where things started.
Mm.
Um and it was still a long time before anything started changing, okay? There was still
For sure.
years of depression.
Yeah. So
Um,
how did you feel? What was that feeling like? What was depression like for you?
I feel like I've always had a really complicated relationship with the word depression
Yeah,
because,
and we've talked about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
even, like, when I was really at my lowest, like, I would still there was something I would laugh about, you know?
Mhm.
And I just was like I had depression, and most of the people in my life were, like, very aware of that.
Mm.
Um, but I still felt very weird to say that, like but, I mean, it just felt like I think there was some aspect of, like, victim mentality,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like I never blamed anyone outside of myself, it was me. I was the problem. I was yeah. It was very self-focused.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it just felt I felt just disappointed and
Mhm.
sad.
But did you know why you were feeling disappointed and sad, or was though that the answers that you were seeking?
Knew at the time it was because I didn't have an amazing job. I hadn't graduated
Okay.
college. I didn't have, like
Mhm.
at that time, those were still my answers.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
yeah,
outcome
I was
focus.
still
Yeah.
like the outcome. And I think it was a long time before I
It gets
changed that.
complicated, right?
Yeah,
Like, it
it
gets
gets
complicated because your
complicated.
mindset continues to change throughout the years the more that you learn and grow. I personally feel like, mental health issues or how we label them mental health are really a start of a spiritual awakening. It's almost like your body is telling you that there are things that you kinda need to, like, work on or process or, like, there's something that's not
Yeah.
working that you're doing right now,
Yeah,
and it's, like, a
exactly.
start of a journey to figure out why and how to, like it's a challenge. It's a
Mhm.
challenge.
Yeah, it is a challenge. I feel like
Yeah.
there's so like, literally still, I feel like we could talk for days about this, but I'm
I
trying to
know, I, like,
find
wanna ask you so many
yeah.
questions.
Um, yeah, I
I'm like,
think
"Okay, 2010, like, what was happening?" No, but okay,
yeah,
so you're
I really
saying
think the big the beginning, first couple years was just like, "Okay, what's going on?" Like, just questioning
yeah.
what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what is true for me. Why am I always looking outside? Why do I feel I'm successful if I reach these benchmarks? Why do I not want all of the things that society keeps telling me that
Yep.
I want? Yeah, I think just it was like that. It was just that for a long time. And then, slowly I feel like you start to, well, I started seeing a therapist. One of the biggest things that she did is like she gave me permission, which I mean, of course, I didn't need permission, but I did need permission to be
Yeah.
creative again, and that put me back in touch with my
Wow.
inner child and, like, my true self, and that is, like, really, I think, one of the big things that started opening up my world again.
Wow.
Mhm.
How did she give you that?
She literally gave me a notebook and she was like, "You better draw in this every day, and even if you draw for 30 minutes and all you have is a triangle, you can say, 'Hey, I drew a mountain today.'" Like
I love that.
and, connecting to my inner child and my true self, like, that is a
Mm.
time when I truly felt at one with the universe, like, I could
Mhm.
feel, like, the connection, you know? Like, you're just outside, and especially for my childhood, like, I was out in nature, like, with the redwoods, and it's just a like, when I look back in it, it feels like a dream, like, in just a beautiful
Mm.
way, you know? And so
Mhm.
I feel like that just really was a big turning point for me also.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear so many people say that a part of adulting is literally forgetting everything that you've been taught and just, like, reverting back to childhood.
Yeah.
And when people are like, "Oh, what should I do in this life, and what do I feel passionate about?" Is usually the things that you felt most excited about when you were a child. I've heard that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So I feel like, yeah, that was a big thing for me,
Yeah.
and it got me, like, just for me also being in nature, thinking about it or remembering it, I feel that connection to source. And I feel like even thinking about my childhood and drawing and doing the things that I used to love, like it brought,
Joy.
yeah, joy and brought that connection, not just to my former self or my true self, like to the
Mm.
universe. Like I felt connected again.
Yeah, you saying all of this is just I mean, you're, like, planting a seed in my head right now where I'm like, yeah, I mean, connection, I've realized has become the top of my value system at this point in my life. It's
Yeah.
like connection, community. I think like a lot of times also we tried to do things on our own. So that's really great that you were able to like have a therapist and have someone who
Yeah.
could just hold space for you to make you feel like less, alone in those thoughts.
I
Because at the end of the day, like when we like thinking about how like we were put on this earth, there wasn't all these buildings and all of these like cell towers like around us. Like it was literally you had to be in a community to survive. And those were a lot of like our innate and internal like instincts, is to kind of
Yeah.
have people help us. I just thought of that when you said connection
Mhm.
because part of that is, yeah, connection with the universe, connection with source and nature, and all of the things that are living, all these
Yeah.
living beings.
Yeah.
That's really crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, well,
I feel like you only touched the
yeah,
surface.
I feel like I did, but I feel like that gives a good well, maybe I
Idea.
didn't go too deep into the
Yeah, I
darkness, but
wanted to hear
like
the juice.
I mean,
Because
I
my story
don't
was like I was on the floor crying, screaming
Yeah.
out, "Help me!" No, I'm
I
joking.
cried every day, but
Yeah. For how
like
long?
usually like I mean, it varied. It varied, but
I mean, like, for a year.
no, no, for like a couple years.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, and within that, of course, there's like
It's cyclical.
yeah, it's
It's
cyclical.
not
It's
it
not, it
yeah.
wasn't literally every single day for 3 years. Like I did
Yeah.
have some breaks,
Yeah.
a couple weeks here and there. But
Wow.
yeah, it just was like it felt really low. But at the same time, I'm still really lucky. I had like my mom would be on the phone with me every day or my
Yeah.
sister, and they would listen to me and be with me. And yeah, so I feel so lucky on so many levels, but they just wanted so bad to help me, and
Yeah.
they did. I mean, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
You were kind of the one that had to go through that and experience that, but
yeah,
that's really
yeah,
nice that you had your family there to support
yeah,
you.
yeah, it was. Yeah. So that's a little bit about
Just a
my
little
story,
taste
a little taste.
of the dark days.
The dark
I
days.
love that we can laugh about this though.
Yeah. If I could, I mean, that is like literally another thing I'm so grateful for, because if I could laugh at myself and my darkness,
Yeah.
like I don't even know. I don't know where I would be.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither. And I think that shows how far that we've come, that we are able to
Yeah.
just
Yeah, yeah.
reflect on it with kind of gratitude.
Totally. I mean, I think that was a big step also, when
Yeah.
that happened, where I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because so many things wouldn't have happened if I wasn't really
Mm.
struggling for a long time.
Yeah. We wouldn't be here. You
We
wouldn't
wouldn't be
be
here. We
with
wouldn't be
me
here. I wouldn't.
creating this
I
podcast together.
know, literally. That's one of the big things. It's like
Yeah.
you and me being friends. So yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for. And, we all have periods of darkness, and hopefully everyone who is experiencing something like that has the resources and the people around them that can help them or point them in the right direction. And hopefully they'll have like some way to connect with the universe and feel that oneness and know
And I think that's also one of the reasons that we were talking about earlier about starting this podcast is that
Yeah.
we want to kind of be like a resource or just like a nice space to come to that there's like-minded people or a community of people that can kind of come together and be
Yeah.
like, okay, we're not crazy. Like
Yeah,
other
exactly.
people have experiences and it's not talked about. I know that as the years have gone by, I feel like the newer generations are more comfortable talking about like mental health and all of those experiences. But I truly believe that everyone has had their own experience and has viewed it in their own way that makes sense for them. For me, I don't know how you feel about like depression, but for me, I used to identify so much with depression that it became like I'm the victim, and I felt almost like
Mm.
a lot of safety in that, which is crazy to think about because it almost felt like that was my identity for a
Yeah.
long time, and it wasn't until, like, I learned more even, like, the past, like, couple of years, I've learned, like, okay, that for me was a super, super challenging experience that I can now look back on and be like, have so much compassion for that person that was struggling so
Mhm.
much, for many reasons. Like, I had these expectations for myself. I had these expectations, like you said, earlier about, like, societal expectations. I need to go to college, I need to get a good job, I need to, like, get married and have children, and this is what is expected of me, and that to me was not yeah, it felt super heavy. Like, it felt super like, a lot of pressure. It
Yeah,
felt like, "This doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't bring me joy, but I'm following this because that's what I've been told my whole life is gonna make me happy." And
exactly.
then seeking something that wasn't in alignment with me just brought me, like, even farther off this, like, joyful path. And, yeah, it was, like, what I experienced in my depression, but I think what I actually was experiencing was just an opportunity for me to reflect on, like, what I actually wanted to do with my life and who I actually wanted to be, and, um, yeah, there was just a lot of pain in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pain in the reflection or
Just pain in the experience, because
yeah.
my kind of dark days, started around college as well. I went to a Cal State for my first 2 years, and everyone that I had gone to high school with was going to, like, a frickin' Ivy League, like and because I went to a nice high school. I mean, it was a
Yeah,
public school, but everyone had high hopes, high expectations, like, ambition, that's the
and
word I'm looking.
performed at that level,
High performance.
apparently.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, high performance individuals. And if you know my personality, you know that I'm not like I just want to be go with the flow, happy, do things that I want to do, be creative.
Mhm.
That was like the big distinction that I've realized now in my life that I'm like very much so much more happy in my creativity
Yeah.
like children are. But anyways, going back and forth. But yeah, so I went to a Cal State. All of these people, all these people were going to like an Ivy League, and I felt so inadequate. Like I felt so inadequate. I just felt like poor me. Why can't I? You know, why can't I go to an Ivy League? I mean, I didn't even try because I didn't at the time like there we had like financial issues and stuff. So I just felt like yeah, very inadequate. And then I ended up transferring to I ended up transferring to Pepperdine, and that was like, "Oh my god, I'm finally gonna be happy." I'm finally gonna be happy. I'm finally doing things that I'm supposed to do because this is like a nicer school in Malibu. And,
Yeah, yeah.
I had a lot of pride in that, which I don't feel like was bad at all. It was exciting. But obviously, there was something missing because I transferred to Pepperdine and I'm even more depressed. Like, So depressed. I mean, I was sleeping like I swear like 15
Oh,
hours like a
yeah.
day. I couldn't even get out of bed. So I was even more depressed. Yeah. Once I transferred to Pepperdine cuz I think also like the financial stress and how am I going
Mhm.
to, pay for this, and it wasn't something that was bringing me joy like at all. And then what I was sharing with Shadi earlier was that I started dating someone who was like older than me. They had also transferred in. And I think that was actually the start of my conscious journey because shout out to him.
Yes.
Every episode, someone gets a shout
Yeah.
out. He was the start of that. And I remember recently I actually found a letter that he had written to me.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know where it is now, but this was recently. I can't believe I saved it. I feel like I was so like weird that I just like threw stuff away. But anyways, he like wrote me a letter basically saying like I see so much goodness in you and I know that you're struggling. I'm gonna cry. And he's like, I know that one day you'll see like who you truly are.
Wow.
Experiencing that relationship with him where he, like, to be honest, psychoanalyzed me a lot to the point where I actually was getting frustrated because I just felt like this is just who I
Yeah.
am. You get
Yeah.
defensive and you're just like, this is just who I am. Like, stop trying to change me because I didn't think that I needed to change. I thought everything
Mhm.
was external,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
realize that everything was internal.
Yeah.
And so I would get like so frustrated and I felt like I was boxed into being like this, insecure, like shy person. And that actually wasn't who I was at all. It was all just who I thought that I was. It was a story that I've created
Yeah.
over and over in my head. Well, I'm always tired. I'm always lazy. I do everything last minute. I'm always going to be sad. I've always been sad, like, which all those things were not true.
Yeah.
And so that was like a really big turning point because that's when I started to actually like ask myself questions of why am I doing this? I remember I was driving back to the dorm and I finally like literally typed into Google like all these things that I was experiencing, like why am I doing this, blah blah blah. And Google popped out like the answer like, "Oh, well you might be suffering from like depression."
Oh.
And that was the first time where I even at that point, I was just like, "Oh, no, like, other people get depressed. Like, I don't get depressed," because 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
like, happy, but that was all a facade, I feel like.
I think it's kind of something that does happen when it's, like, the first time you have a clue that you might be experiencing something like depression, like, you're like, "No, no way."
Yeah.
And then, like,
Because you think that it's going to be like, I thought that it had to have been worse than and it
yeah,
got worse,
yeah,
actually.
yeah, great.
Sorry. I was trying to think of my transition to yes, it got worse. But then
Tell me
obviously it
about it.
got better.
Yeah,
So
of
it does
course.
get better, but like it had to get worse for it to get better because I kept ignoring it. I kept pushing it away. I kept being like, well, I'm not actually depressed because depressed people would be like, crying and depressed people would not be even able to get out of bed or feed themselves. And I had this whole idea. Again, there's all these ideas and expectations for even depression,
Totally,
Which
yeah.
yeah. So again, I'm on this trajectory of pleasing everyone. Yeah, being a people pleaser, doing what I thought I had to do, which made me feel lower and lower and lower because everything is energy, right? So
Yeah.
everything that I was doing that was not making me happy just continued to lower my energy further and further and further. And it wasn't until I graduated where that's when I had a breakdown because I graduated and I thought I should be happy now, right? There's another milestone. I should be happy because I've graduated from this like, decent college and I'm going to get a better job just like everyone's telling me is that my trajectory. And
Yeah.
but the reality was I was like $80,000 in debt and I didn't have a job. So I moved back at home and with my mom. All of my friends were having got a new job. We're living in Santa Monica, and I felt like a failure again. Oh my god.
Oh my god, it's a lot, but
It's
it's
a lot.
like
It's a lot. And I moved back home and I don't have a job for like 3 months. And so that's when it got worse because I just was crying every single day. Every day. I would just cry for like 3 months straight and would find any ways to like distract myself. From how much like how painful and inadequate I felt because of all these expectations. It's all the
yeah,
expectations that I had
exactly.
for myself.
Mhm.
So then I started a job that distracted me for a little bit, which was like kind of nice.
Yeah, it's nice to have a
Y-
little break.
yeah, it was a little break, like you said. It was a little break. And then I moved to Santa Monica and was still depressed. Oh, what do you say? All these milestones that I'm hitting and I'm still effing depressed. And then I get another job. Oh, now I'm working in Hollywood. Woo!
That's gonna fix
That's
it.
definitely gonna fix it. Did that fix it? No.
No,
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 it
it
didn't
didn't.
fix it. I was working at Paramount. I don't even think I told you that. Did I
Yeah,
tell
I
you this?
don't
Yeah, I
think
was working in
so.
that's how inconsequential it is to my life now that like, oh, at the time I felt like so proud of it and now I don't even really remember it. But yeah, I thought that was going to make me happy and yep, didn't make me happy. So that's when I actually met another partner who also helped me on my spiritual awakening because at that point I was searching for answers. Finally, thank God. I was like searching for answers. I was realizing a lot of my patterns, my conditioning. I was blaming everything on my childhood. This was the
Yeah.
start of like I was fully in like still victimhood at this point, but at
Mhm.
least now I was realizing why I was the way that I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
and was actively trying to change, but not knowing how really. Actually, it was really great because my older sister, I feel like she started her spiritual awakening, years before me. And so she actually really helped me feel like less alone in that because she had already
Yeah.
experienced that, which I felt very grateful for. And I have told her before, like, how appreciative I am of her because I told her, like, when you first going through your spiritual awakening, and she's like very like passionate and outspoken. So she was telling everyone about it. And I just thought, like, this girl's crazy. I'm like, oh my God, she's crazy. Like, what the hell is she talking about? And then, like, literally 2 years later, I sent her this message. I'm like, you don't even know that I was like talking shit about you, but I'm so sorry. And now I realize everything that you were saying, like, it makes sense to me now.
Yeah.
So then after that relationship, I just realized that I am the one that's creating my reality. I finally got out of victimhood. And that relationship actually didn't end very well. And the old me would have been like, oh, F that guy. Like he sucks. Like you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
actually at the end of the relationship, I just thought like, wow, that taught me a lot. And I have so much love for this person. And like
Mm.
I need to, forgive him and forgive myself for like the ways that we just didn't understand each other, you
Yeah.
know? And that was the start.
That was the start.
That was the start of something
And
new.
look at us now.
And look at us now. That was 3 years ago where I was like, "Fine, like, I need to take this spiritual
Okay,
seriously."
mine was, like, maybe, a little bit less than 3 years ago. I think it was, like, 2.5 years
Mhm,
ago where I was like that's kind of when I started getting into Joe's work and started
mhm.
listening. I think listening to him talk is one of the things that really helped me, like, I would listening to his podcast that he did or, whatever, but I that's I finally felt, I had a path, I guess, or, like, a way, because he really likes to explain things, I guess from a scientific standpoint, but, like,
Yeah.
he just also kind of makes things clearer. Um,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Okay." It kind of all came together. It's like these thoughts and feelings that I was having before about, like, "Oh, yeah, my thoughts aren't really positive and my reality isn't really positive, but it
Mhm.
used to be. That's weird." And then,
You're
like,
connecting the dots.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then, hearing him talk and, like, I was like, "Oh, okay, so it is related. My thoughts are creating my reality. That's why there's a correlation between my thoughts and what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing." And
Yep.
I think, that started to open my eyes more too. And I've just like I think even more curious after that, and I was just like, "What? I wanna know. I wanna know what's going on. I
Same.
wanna know what I can do. I wanna know. I wanna know." I feel like I always say this, but, like, honestly, if you look at my life, it doesn't look that much different
Mm.
from when I was in my dark days.
Mhm.
But, like, I just feel
Mhm.
like, I feel totally different. So it's just that, I mean, for me, really reinforces the fact that it is internal,
Yeah.
like
I read this book that was kind of like the start of, yeah, this the conscious journey. I keep saying the start of the I don't know where it fucking
yeah, I know, it's
started.
really hard. I'm
It's
always
really
looking for a
hard.
starting point too, but it's just all
Yeah.
mixed up,
Yeah,
like
January 28th.
Yeah.
The day I was born. So yeah, I read this book. My sister gave me this book. It's called Her Return to Love, and by Marianne Williamson. She ran for
Oh,
president.
yeah.
And the book is a what's it called? Like a has to do with Course of
Oh,
Miracles.
A
You
Course
read
in
that.
Miracles, yeah. I don't know what it's called, but it's like books that are published to help you understand kind of another
Yes.
book. Yeah.
I'm not sure what that's called,
I don't
but
know either. I don't know. I'm
whatever. Comment down below
sh
if you know the word. But my sister, who again went through the trenches way before me, I want to say 2 years. I'm always 2 years behind her too. Like she was into tea 2 years ago. Now I'm into tea and herbs. I'm always 2 years behind her, and she's 2 years older than me. I didn't even put that together.
That makes
Okay,
sense.
she gave me this book, Return to Love, and that actually changed my life. That
Really?
changed my mother freaking life. And then Joe changed my life again after that. But this changed my life in a way that it answered a lot of the questions about that I had just about like the universe and our existence. Because, when you're kind of going through this depressive stage, you're thinking, why the hell am I here? Right? Like, at least for me, I went through really, really dark months where I just felt like I don't want to be here anymore. Like, this is pointless. So I can just suffer for the rest of my life? And it wasn't until like I read Return to Love that answered a lot of the questions that I had of like, how am I supposed how no, not how am I supposed to operate, but what is my true self? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because when you're asking yourself, who am I? How do I even figure out that
Yeah.
the answer to that question? And reading that book, she talks about like career, relationships, like the afterlife, religion, all of these like really important topics
Mhm.
that we're, told this is how you think this way about each one of these
Oh,
topics? And she talks about each one, and it made me realize, okay, if anything that I do, any decision that I make, I want it to be focused. Like, why am I making the decision? But what's the goal? What's the purpose? And the book said that love is the answer. The love
Mm.
is everything. It's the energy of the universe. Even fear is just the absence of love. That
So
was like
true.
my guiding light and I had this conversation a week ago with a friend who was just like kind of asking me like, okay, well, what about this? Like, how do you feel about this? And I said, you can really boil it down to one thing. If it ain't love,
It ain't for me.
yeah, it ain't for me. And granted, that's easier, like, said than done.
Of
I'm saying
course,
that
yeah.
and saying, like, that's who I truly feel like everyone is. Do I always act that way? No, of course not.
Yeah,
Like, I'm human, you know? That's it's a work in progress,
totally.
and it's, yeah, it's about being curious and navigating that. But, yeah, that was, like, my introduction to spirituality because that's something that, like, is a little bit more airy that I don't think
Mhm.
many people will really understand or resonate with. And then after like a year later, when I got into Joe's work, that's when it really grounded it for me. Because like you said, he talks about science of it. So the literal chemical reactions that are happening in your body to elicit all of these experiences that you're happening, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just to throw out a DMT, because we always like we did a DMT meditation, but DMT is actually naturally produced in the body when you're asleep, and it also comes out like when I think that you're
When you're
you're
dying,
dying.
yeah.
Yeah. But when you think about it, that's literally a chemical reaction. It's a chemical
Exactly.
reaction that your body is making um and can be reproduced, right?
Mhm.
So, just like dopamine, serotonin,
Oxytocin.
oxytocin, like all these happy hormones your body is producing. So why can't we produce more?
Yeah,
Like why can't we produce it and be have that joy and excitement on the daily?
and we can.
And we can stay tuned to figure out how.
I feel like I was a little bit all over the place again, but it's hard to kind of try and find a linear
Mm.
like story when it was like all over the place, and it's like our spiritual awakening wasn't one moment, it was 10 years, and it's hard, it's hard to like
Yeah,
cover it like
it really is within
in a
like
way that makes sense. Yeah,
30 to 40 minutes.
exactly.
But I think that we did a good job.
Yeah, I think so
And I
too.
think that in further episodes, honestly, we can talk about it more. Like
Yeah.
it's an ongoing journey. It doesn't just stop there, you
Yeah, it
know?
doesn't stop there, and yeah, I think it'll all make more sense the more you guys learn about us and the more that we talk.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Well, thank you for sharing your dark days with me, Shadi.
thanks for sharing, Lauren.
Okay, well, if you guys have any questions, you can email us. I set up an email address,
Yes.
contact@cluelesstoconscious.com. If you have trouble knowing how to spell conscious, look it up.
Look at the title of
Oh
this,
yeah.
wherever
Look
you're
at
listening to this.
look at the title of this video. But you can email us there. I already saw that we got a couple emails in already. So
Yay.
that's really exciting because we want to answer questions and even help with, advice. If you want to take advice from us, like email us or comment on the our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. And I think that's it.
Bye.
Bye.